Hey, good morning, everyone. I have the opportunity to be joined by Chris Nieder from Spirit Lake Crosswind today. And the big question that we're posing today of how do we imitate Christ? How do we follow Christ, honor God in times of isolation?
Actually, I'm going to start with one verse, and it's out of John 15, and it's verse 9. Jesus says, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you." This is in the upper room discourse. So this is Jesus that Thursday night before he's arrested, before they go to the Gethsemane, Chuck, remember, and he goes to the cross. So he's talking about this incredible intimacy between us and God, which if I can just stop there, that's huge. What a God we have, where he just says, I'm not just going to be your boss or your king, but I'm going to be your dad. I'm going to be your friend. It just like blew my mind. Say, let's start with that idea that we've been invited into a very, very special relationship. Does that make sense?
And I think that's a good call to us to look and see how are the people that we are around, how are we loving them? What is the hope that we can find in the fact that we know we are loved? And I think about students especially, this idea that so often maybe we're trying to gain the sense of affirmation or love by our peers, and we normally do that through school or through hanging out, and man, that's been stripped away from us. And I think there's maybe this angst a little bit of saying, I don't have that affirmation. I mean, I can get it through social media, but that's it, and it's a very surface level. But to understand and be secure that we are loved in that depth, man, that is, just like you said, that is mind-blowing.
But Ephesians 5:1, therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children. I feel like, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I did not grow up going to church. So there was this point in my life when I was a senior in high school, I started going to church. I started hearing about Jesus for the first time. Realized as I heard about him, man, I got to make a decision on this. Like, either I believe it or I don't. And if I don't, then I'm going to go on with my life. But if I do, if he is who he said he was, then I want in on that. And it changed everything. A lot of times we think of how busy Jesus was. And as mature Christians, we get so busy doing to be human doers instead of human beings. And that we forget that Jesus pulled away from ministry to pray, to connect with God. And one of the benefits of this time, Chuck, is I think all the busyness has been taken away, and we can kind of return to the basics, the fundamentals of, Christianity is not first and foremost about telling others about Jesus. It's actually about me and Jesus. The big word for it is tyranny of the urgent, where we just get so busy on telling others about this great God. I can go a week or two and just say, man, I've been praying, I've been in the Word, but I haven't really connected because I've been so busy.
And when we look at Ephesians 5:1 of being children, of just taking time to revel in that it's not about doing this, and this, but just being there. That idea of at the baseline of our life, where is Jesus in that? And as we look at Jesus, and like you pointed out, Chris, is that yes, he did so many miracles. He did so many things that are recorded, but just as important are the times that where he did pull away from the crowd, or tried to, and took time and prayed and worked on his direct relationship with God. And I'm 100% with you, Chris, that is where potentially where we're at right now, where we can't go out and do a million other things. We can't do that right now, for better or worse. But what we can do and what we need to be doing is looking at the examples that Christ did give us and how he related to the Father, as he purposefully took time to isolate himself. Right after he was baptized in Matthew 4, he goes out into the wilderness for 40 days, 40 nights, fasts for 40 days, 40 nights. But during that time, he is asking God and taking time to prepare himself with the plans that God has for him. He's taking, in this time of isolation, be in prayer for what God has for you next. To come before God and say, God, I humbly offer myself to you. Speak to me during this time. Prepare in me the plans you have for me.
Of Jesus' ministry, right? Right at the beginning, he kind of connects that 40 days, and then you think of Gethsemane and towards the end. And of course, we know that all throughout he was still plugging in there, but I think he sets us a great example. So one thing I would just like to point out when we see Jesus' example is let's not forget he was the God man. So even though he's man, he is God. And if he needs to take time out of his day to connect with God the Father, boy, even us pastors or really mature, we need to slow down and make that time. The vine and the branches, and he says, stay connected to me. Otherwise, those roses, man, you're a rose, you're withering. You got to stay plugged in. Such a good time for mature Christians to slow down and say, look, more than anything, my whole life, not just this time, my whole life is about making time for God.
It would be easy for us to completely check out of church, of community, because we can't meet with that. And it is so important for us during this time to not pull away from church, to not pull away from our time with God, because, man, exactly like what you said, Chris, is Satan could use this time and clip us like roses. We're like roses. We've been clipped, but we don't have that relationship. And it's so important for us to find that time to make a new habit of being connected with Jesus in this time. In both the temptation, we look also after Jesus feeds the 5,000. He goes off and spends time just communing with the Father. We look at Gethsemane, where he's like just laying prostrate and just begging God and asking for grace and mercy to allow him to do what God's asked him to do. We need to now make sure we stay connected to God the Father, just as Jesus did, to imitate Jesus, and just like you said, stay part of that vine. Now is really when we see, where's Jesus in our life? If we take away all this busy stuff and Jesus still doesn't get time, guys, Jesus is not a priority or really a relationship with you at all.
Wouldn't it be a shame if at the end of this lockdown, whatever you want to call it, and however long it is, wouldn't it be a shame if all that happened was we binge watched Netflix? Wouldn't it be a shame if getting closer to Jesus wasn't number one? I mean, even if it was number 2 or number 3, wouldn't that be a shame? Like, let's really invest daily in growing closer to him. And
that's a win, and that's an eternal victory right there. So Chris, I just want to thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate all you had. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.